Talking with the experts.
In episode 354, Tony Redondo discusses with us why clear communication and providing solutions for client issues is paramount.
Is the majority of problems clients have is not with the transaction, it's with the banking of the transaction. So a simple example, I have a corporate client, about 30% of my business is dealing with businesses rather than private individuals. And I've got a few companies based in Australia who export to the United States. So long before they met me, what did they do? Well, they thought to themselves, okay, we're going to be sensible and organized. So they went off to the bank, their local bank, and opened up a US dollar account to receive the dollar from clients in the United States. Obviously, that takes money. The banks are not going to do that for nothing. So they got charged fees. They had to fill in forms and provide documents, and they get charged a monthly fee. So it's hassle and cost for the client. What that exporting client doesn't realize, because it's not their business to, and you haven't got a bank manager to advise me for these days, is when that invoice gets to the client in the United States, you're asking the client in the United States to move US dollars out of the country to a US dollar account based in Australia. Even if that client banks with one of the top 5 American banks, the Wells Fargos, JP Morgan Chases, those kind of people, who have online banking in the States only works domestically.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. My next guest over the years has dealt with all types of clients from all parts of the world. First it was face-to-face and then it was over the phone. Then everything went online and now most of his work is done on Zoom. Whatever the communication method, the key is to be clear with your communication and provide solutions for the client's issues. My next guest is Tony Redondo, and he's from Cosmos Currency Exchange Limited. Welcome, Tony. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me on, Rose.
Now, you've been in the financial services industry for over 37 years, and you have an associate of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. Wow, that's pretty impressive. You've held senior management positions for various banks and brokerages before you launched your business in 2020. Now, Cosmos provides international currency payment solutions for clients. Well, what is the currency payment solutions business? What does that do?
What does that do? In theory, there should be no need for my services at all, because in the 21st century, it should be relatively easy to move funds from one bank account to another bank account involving an exchange of currency. The trouble is that it's not easy. There's lots and lots of bumps in the road, and that is deliberately made so by the banking and broking world, because the more bumps in the road, the more charging points there are, the more money that can be made out of clients' monies. A simple example, for those people that still use checks, in the UK, it takes 5 days for a check to clear.
Yeah, we don't use it here.
It doesn't take 5 days for a check to clear. It takes 10 seconds for a check to clear. The reason they say it takes 5 days for a check to clear is because guess who earns interest on your money during the 5-day process?
Yes, the bank.
It's not you. That's for sure.
Yes, I notice even transactions come out of your bank automatically, like straight away. But sometimes it takes a day or two, up to 5 days to get into the other person's account, which I think is really cheeky.
Exactly right. And that's another example of another bump on the road. So largely the financial system is very much built for the benefit of the practitioners, not the client. Now, the idea behind what Cosmos does is very straightforward, and it's a very crowded marketplace. There are over 650 banks registered just in a square mile of the City of London, plus all the hybrid brokers, plus all the online apps. So clients, especially in the UK, but also internationally, are not short of options. So you might ask yourself, what would possess a guy with 35 years corporate experience to then turn his back on that career and in the middle of a pandemic join, or launch?
Why did you do that?
I did that because I saw a gap in the market. Because luckily for me, what I've seen in the last 15, 20 years of my career is the internet's taken over. So when I first started in 1985, I called the tail end of when bank managers were bank managers. And there was no internet and there was no computers. And the only way to do business was to talk to people. And the only choice you had is whether it was face-to-face or on the telephone. There were the two communication choices. And snail mail was still very much in evidence. And over the course of my working lifetime, but especially the last 15, 20 years, the whole of the finance world, but especially foreign exchange and currency payments markets have moved completely online. So there's been a complete move away from relationships to transaction-based business models, away from personal service to client self-servicing on a platform or an app, away from a proactive approach where you're guiding the client to try and get the most out of the transaction, to clients having to self-service on a platform by themselves, and a reactive business model. And so, yes, it's a very crowded marketplace, but there's a huge gap in the market. And the gap in the market is what Cosmos tries to fill, which is a relationship-based, personal service, proactive, with the convenience of things like local collection accounts. Because of my banking experience, one of the things I learned over and over again is the majority of problems clients have is not with the transaction, it's with the banking of the transaction. So a simple example, I have a corporate client, about 30% of my business is dealing with businesses rather than private individuals. And I've got a few companies based in Australia who export to the United States. So long before they met me, what did they do? Well, they thought to themselves, okay, we're going to be sensible and organized. So they went off to the bank, their local bank, and opened up a US dollar account to receive the dollar from clients in the United States. Obviously, that takes money. The banks are not going to do that for nothing. So they got charged fees. They had to fill in forms and provide documents, and they get charged a monthly fee. So it's hassle and cost for the client. What that exporting client doesn't realize, because it's not their business to, and you haven't got a bank manager to advise me for these days, is when that invoice gets to the client in the United States, you're asking the client in the United States to move US dollars out of the country to a US dollar account based in Australia. Even if that client banks with one of the top 5 American banks, the Wells Fargo's, JP Morgan Chase's, those kind of people, who have online banking in the States only works domestically, not internationally.
Wow, that's strange.
So the hassle is the client once a month, unbeknown to you, the exporter, your client in the United States gets your invoice, prints it off, gets in a car, drives to the bank, fills out a form, pays the bank $50 for the dollars to be moved from their US dollar account in the United States to your US dollar account in Australia, so the bank can convert it back for you. So it's cost, time, hassle, paperwork at both ends, and it's not cheap. And the banks still control 95% of the US market, so there's very little competition, which means they can charge what they like and do. There is an alternative, and the alternative that Cosmos provides is we're one of the few licensed brokers with local collection accounts. At the moment, we have 3. We have one in New York for US dollars, we have one in Canada for Canadian dollars, and we have one in Germany for euros. So now that same Australian company registers with Cosmos, doesn't have to go out and open up their own dollar account. They can use ours. So that's one saving straight away. The invoice then goes out with our dollar account details in New York. So the client in the United States doesn't have to pay the $50 and physically go to the bank anymore. They can just do an online transfer from their account in Florida, California, Kansas, wherever they happen to be, to New York, and we'll do the rest. So it's finding these currency payment solutions to take the bumps away from the road, to make our clients' job life easier, and to help them grow by making their clients' life easier as well. And that's what we try and do. So currency payment solutions is simple. It's moving funds from one bank account to another bank account. The problem is conventional methods are riddled with hidden costs, hidden fees, time delays, no guidance, completely impersonal service. The UK is lucky in the sense that in the UK, the banks are only responsible for less than 50% of market share. So most UK clients are unaware of how lucky they are in comparison to their international cousins. But even then,
I believe though that America is so far behind in the internet banking world. I would have thought that they would have been miles ahead of everybody else.
Exactly right. So is Canada. Canada's the same. You try getting Canadian dollars out of Canada, you have to physically go to the bank. So one of the interesting things that happened to us is I launched in 2020 in July. My last two jobs in the corporate world were dealing with international property. But obviously the second and the third lockdown completely destroyed that pipeline because nobody could move, nobody could view, just frozen over. But we survived.
So in Canada and the UK, there are still these challenges with sending money away.
All over the world, most countries in the world, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, the United States, the banks still have over a 90% market share. So there's very little competition. So therefore, there's very little pressure to provide a service to the client. The UK is slightly different boat in that over the years, the bank's market share has gone down and down and down, and now is below 50%, which is good. But the main problem UK clients have is until companies like Cosmos came along, the only alternative to the banks were these online apps. Now, they're usually a lot better because they have more up-to-date technology, and therefore they don't have bank overheads because they don't have branches up and down the country. So they are better than the banks in general. The problem is you're talking to an algorithm. And what often happens, if it works, it's fantastic. But the question is, if it doesn't,
yes.
If you want to send a payment to a cousin in Canada from Australia, and you go online, you press a few buttons, the money leaves your Australian account, and 3-5 days later, your cousin in Canada says, I thought you were sending me money. And you then go back on the app, and a lot of these apps don't even have contact telephone numbers on the website.
No, they don't, no.
So you think, what do I do now? And what does a client do? With Cosmos, it's all about the personal service. So all you do with me is you phone me up, WhatsApp me, email me, whichever it works for you, method of communication, and say, Tony, my cousin's saying they haven't received the money. Can you look into it, please? That's it. I'm inside the system, so I'll put a trace on a payment. I'll find out what's going on, and I'll do that, and you can get on to the rest of your day.
Now, I have to ask you a bit of a naughty question. How safe is people's money?
Then it's not a naughty question. It's the most important question. It's absolutely 100% safe for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I work with partners who hold the client collection accounts, and they are fully authorized by the Financial Conduct Authority. So that is the highest accreditation available. It means that by law, all client funds are held in protected ring-fenced clients' accounts. I usually explain it to people. They're like, if you recall, the days of your solicitors having escrow accounts. Yeah, so they're like an escrow account or a solicitor's client's account where your money goes in because of your house move.
Goes into trust, basically.
Yeah, and even if that firm goes bust, because your funds are separated from the practices and funds, your funds are 100% safe with no upper limit, and that's the guarantee that we offer.
Excellent. I would like to just want to clear that up for the listeners because people, it's an important question, as you say, to ask, because Absolutely. People need to know that their money's not going to some scam place.
Absolutely. No, that's right. Exactly right.
Now, we were going to discuss say what you mean and mean what you say. So what did you mean by that? And tell me what you mean and mean what you say.
What I meant by that is I got, in all honesty, a bit jaundiced in the last sort of 10, 15 years of my career by management firms talking at the morning meetings at the banks and the brokers I worked for about the importance of customer service, and then seeing how customers really were treated throughout the day. And so when I set up Cosmos, I wanted to be able to make it very clear to clients who perhaps didn't know me, because I was lucky enough that I've always had a group of clients that have moved with me from job to job. So I didn't start off from zero. I had a hardcore of clients to start off with. But I thought to myself, once I got beyond those people, how do I make it clear that when I talk about customer service, when Cosmos talks about customer service, we're serious? And the only way I could think of, and there might well be more elegant solutions out there, but that's above my pay grade. Okay, the only one I could come up with is that not to market and be completely 100% reliant on referrals. And the reason I think that's important is because it doesn't take too much to work out that if my talk about the need for personal service and the bespoke payment solutions that we provide is just that, is just talk, if we don't look after our clients, guess what happens to the referrals?
Yeah,
Guess what
absolutely.
happens to the
They'll dry
repeat
up.
business?
Yeah.
And the fact we launched in July 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, and we're still here in our third year, would seem to suggest that we try our best, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, good customer service is always. I was with an online banking company. They don't have any branches, obviously. They're just purely online banking. And I was really happy with their service until I started using one of my accounts as my business account.
Yeah.
And as soon as they found that out, they made me close it because they're not registered to deal with business banking accounts. But
Right.
I mean, I don't recall reading. I mean, who reads the terms and conditions anyway?
Absolutely.
So someone back in the day should have explained to me that, I couldn't use any of my accounts for business purposes. And I was quite shocked, and I just wanted to close all my accounts with them because I thought, well, that was really bad customer service, because the way the message was worded, it was really very strongly worded, like, you're a naughty person, and if you don't, fix this up, we're going to take you to jail. That's how I felt. It was worded that strongly. And I thought that was really, really bad customer service, because I'd made an honest error. I was happy to fix it, but they didn't need to be so strong about it.
Aggressive. Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that lack of communication, because the technology is very clever these days. It is very advanced. But we're not at the stage yet where the algorithms are that advanced that they can substitute for a human being. Again, one of the things that Cosmos does differently is whenever we get introduced to a client, the first thing that we do is do a discovery session with that client. So we take the time to find out about the client, what they're doing, what they're looking at doing, what time frame they're looking at doing it in, the availability of funds, their attitude to risk, any other pertinent factors, to build that bespoke. So I'll immediately know that you're a business lady, so you might have a personal requirement, but you might also have a business requirement. And I'll be able to say to you, that's fine, because I can register you as an individual, as a sole trader, as a partnership, as a limited company. You can register for different accounts depending on your circumstances. And most of my business clients also have personal accounts with me. And then whenever they have a requirement, they just have to remember to tell me, oh, this is to pay my son's school fees. Okay, so that's personal then. We'll put it through the personal account. Oh, this is an invoice for the company, for the marketing agency I'm using from the Philippines or India or wherever it happens to be. As so many people are using overseas remote workers these days. That's a growing part of our market. But again, it's that old school thing, Rose. Because you're talking to a human being, you can have a chat and you can discuss things.
Yes, but
as
I would have
opposed
thought a
to,
personal phone call rather
yeah,
than a rude message would have been more appropriate than, yeah,
exactly
because
right.
they do still have
Absolutely.
people working in, they still have real people
That's right.
working, but that, I would have thought that a personal phone call, oh, you've made a mistake,
Be the least.
not that rude
Would be
message that
the
I
least.
received. It was terrible. Anyway, we'll
Yeah,
get off
it's
that.
terrible service.
Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing with us about your financial business and how it can help business owners, because I think it's absolutely fascinating and much needed in the marketplace. If what you're saying is, I can't believe America. I just can't believe that in North America is like that. It's, to me, it's like, wow, it's so backwards.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, no, it catches people out all the time, and you can imagine, when we launched in July 2020, we dealt with some really funny situations. They're funny now. They weren't funny at the time, because you had situations, for example, like a British company exporting to the United States, been doing it 15, 20 years, always got paid, had a really good relationship. But of course, because of that problem with the online banking in the United States, but the banks were shut because of lockdown.
Pandemic, yeah.
So you had a crazy situation where a company in the fifth biggest economy in the world, the UK, is exporting to the biggest economy in the world, the United States, and can't get paid. There was no mechanism in the 21st century during lockdown for the payment to happen. None.
Would have
And
been
that is just
terrible.
insane.
It is
Absolutely
insane.
insane. We
Absolutely.
also had another situation sort of closer to home for us because of Brexit. We've seen a lot of British people setting up their holiday homes on the continent because of the hassle of visas and taxes and what have you over Brexit. And typically, if you sold your property in Spain, a couple of days before the completion date, you travel out to Spain to be there to sign the form, bank your banker's draft and move the funds, present yourself to the bank with your passport as ID to move the funds to your Euro account back home. Well, of course, people couldn't travel during lockdown. So the first part they could get around by giving their local solicitor a power of attorney. So the Spanish solicitor, for example, now signed the contract on the client's behalf using the power of attorney, collected the banker's draft, put it into the client's bank in Spain. The problem then was the clients are in the UK, they're phoning a Spanish bank, they're trying to find somebody who speaks English. Once they eventually do, and that took an average, I've got so many stories of 3, 4, 5 hours just to speak to somebody, to be moved from department to department until somebody could speak English, to only then be told that because the UK is now outside of the European Union, it's no longer a flat fee of €20 to transfer the monies, it's now a 1.5% fee. Which means you sell your apartment for €200,000, it's €3,000 just to move your funds. That's not even the conversion costs. That's just to move your euros back. So I started getting phone calls from previous clients who were in that circumstances saying, you've always been able to help us. Is there a solution to this? And that's what led us to open up a Euro account in Frankfurt in Germany, because Germany is still part of the same single market as Spain and Portugal and Italy, Greece and France and what have you. So again, the solicitor gets a power of attorney, signs on the client's behalf, collects the draft, puts it into the bank, but now the client doesn't have to spend 4 hours on a telephone to the bank in Spain. They can just go online, free of charge, move the funds from Spain to Germany, still part of the same single market. Funds get to Germany, we've got a license to bring the monies back from Germany to the UK and convert it back to sterling. So it's currency payment solutions, whether you are paying in another currency, because for instance, you might be using a service from abroad, whether it be an SEO service or marketing or HR or what have you, or tele-sales or cold calling or whatever you want and need. So you've got a payment to make. You can use the banks, you can use the online apps. Cosmos is now an alternative. Or you've got clients abroad and you're receiving US dollars, Canadian dollars, New Zealand dollars, South African rand, Swiss francs, whatever it happens to be. We're licensed for over 35 currencies and can send funds to and can receive funds from over 50 countries around the world.
Well, very good. So, as I said, a much needed service, and there's obviously a market for it. So congratulations on coming up with it.
Thank you.
Tony, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to know more?
Yeah, our website, www.cosmoscurrencyexchange.com. You can email me directly at tonyredondo@cosmoscurrencyexchange.com. We've also got an 0300 number in the UK, so 0044 for the UK, 0300 124 6409. And Cosmos also has quite a few social media platforms that you can find me on.
Perfect. All right. Any last words of wisdom?
My wife would be laughing her head off at me being asked for words of wisdom. She would be laughing her head off. So, no, I think it's really important for clients to understand that there are options out there. They might not be apparent because they might not be well advertised, but there are options, and it's never been easier to have international clients than it is now. I know that from personal experience because I've worked in the City of London, I've worked abroad. I'm now based in Cornwall in the extreme southwest of the UK, so I'm 7 hours from London. I don't do any local face-to-face networking. I network throughout the globe. I have clients throughout the globe. The barriers are definitely calming down, and there are benefits, and clients do have choices, do have options, and it's just in question of doing the research and finding a good fit for you and your business.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation. It's been both enlightening and fun.
Thank you for having me on, Rose.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.